Thanks for asking me. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Oh, it's a thrill. You are just such a smoking drummer, Dave. I got.
The rumor I started, Sam.
I mean, this. I'm looking on the YouTube, and I look at your played with Sheryl Crow and Martin Short, New Kids on the Block, Bonnie Raitt, and we've talked about your experience with Ed Shaughnessy.
Because, boy, I tell you what, I'm just like you. I think the first person I ever really heard use that term was Danny Gottlieb. Another one of Joe's students, like
yeah.
You were, and this is a student of the instrument. It's like, yep, that's me.
Right.
It's like I look at the people around me, and all I really see is like how much I have to learn. I know what my strengths are. I know what my limitations are. I still work on getting to be a better musician. And I look at what people around me can do. And I mean, like there's people doing things I can't even come close to doing. But it's not like I'm going to try to do that or outdo them. Some of these opportunities I have now, where I'm on these bills doing these clinics with this person and that person and the other person, it's very gratifying to see them come to me and say, hey, that was cool, and what about this? And I never thought about that like that before, and they're open to that. They're just as open to it as I am to them, because it's like, well, hell, man, I could never do what you just did,
Yeah.
So show me how you did that.
Right.
And that's what makes the opportunity to be together fun, is that we can learn from each other and we can share from each other, or share with each other, and that's what I look forward to when I go to a place like PASIC or anywhere. So I'm constantly learning and editing, and if I see something I like, I make a note of that. If I see something I don't like, I make a note of that, and I impart the same thing onto the students. You have to learn how to critique, because you have to be brave. Having to make those entrances, it takes a lot of guts. It's like, most of the band is sections of players, and then there's a few people that are individuals, and boy, in the case of the drummer, it's like one wrong move, you could sink the ship. What if I could study with Richard Davis? That would seem perfect, because who does the drummer have to be more closely aligned with in the rhythm section than the bass player? I mean, I had I've got all these records that I love that this guy's on, and there he is, and I thought, it was a gamble, but it just seemed like what I needed to do. I got hip to what the bass and the drums do. I asked him, I said, could I get together with you and take some private lessons? What are we going to do, And
yeah.
He wanted to see where I was at, and I told him, I said, well, I had a whole agenda. I said, I want to learn how to lock in better with the bass. That's one thing. I said, I'd really like to understand song form and how to solo over it better. And I told him, I said, listen to Max Roach's solo records, and I noticed that he puts the rest of the band to work when he solos, just like the rhythm section works when a horn player or a piano player or whatever solo. He employs them. I said, I've got records where the bass is walking the whole time through Max's solo, and he can use more space. And I said, and I think things like that would help me, get a clearer picture of hearing cycles, blues form, and rhythm changes, and be able to focus my ideas a little better. And then I said, and plus I know I had these records where he could do these, like amazing polyrhythmic things. And I said, I'd like to learn more about how to play polyrhythms, and I know that you're really good at that. And he just kind of looked at me and he said, okay, And
well, that's great.
He knew I wasn't just sort of like I wasn't just like, I had an agenda.
Right.
And he made me work for it too. I mean, he's a super cool guy. I mean, I love him to death. But it was like, it was like he would test you. He's like, okay, man, so we would have our lessons at like 6:30 in the morning in his office on the 6th floor of the Humanities building, where there was no drum set, and there wasn't even a cart to carry the drum set that we had available in the basement up. So like if I wanted to take the full drum set, well, like a 4-piece kit, man, I had to cart each piece over to the elevator, and then put it in the elevator, and then go up and then take it out of the elevator, and then piece by piece carry it like halfway across the building on the 6th floor to his door, and be ready to move it in and set it up at 6:30 in the morning. But I never missed a lesson, man.
Well, you were driven, and you knew what you wanted to do. I mean, that's why you're where you are now.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it was so empowering for me, because within a year of beginning that journey with him, he started to hire me. The first what I would call major recording session in my world that I did was a session that he recommended me for, where I played with him and Ben Sidran, and we backed up a wonderful man who's passed on now, named Leo Mayberger, who was a saxophone player who had worked with people like Louis Bellson and all kinds of people like that. He was out of Chicago, and he had a record where he was doing some beautiful original music and some standards, and he wanted to do a record with Richard and Ben, and didn't really have an idea of a drummer, and Richard gave me that opportunity, and I learned so much doing that, and it was such a great experience. And then I started doing concerts really all over the Midwest with Richard, and it was so easy to play with him because he had so much experience, and when you have that kind of inspiration, you can only play at your best, but I also learned so much in the process. And then, of course, being in his big band, we got to play a lot of Thad and Mel repertoire, which was outstanding. a trip out to New York on a spring break, and we went to go see Mel and the big band at the Vanguard. Richard was out there at the same time, and he said, I won't be able to be there Monday night. He said, but go see Mel and let him know you're my student. And my friend Wally Ingram, who's a great drummer, who was my college roommate and works on the West Coast now with a lot of people ranging from Sheryl Crow to Bonnie Raitt. We took this trip out there, and so we went and we watched Mel, and then we went up and talked to him on the break, and we ended up back in the kitchen or the back room or whatever it was with him and Max Gordon talking, and Mel was so cool, and just things like that, and it was wonderful, and it gave me a lot of confidence. And,
let me ask you something, Dave. What advice do you give to your students for their careers?
Okay, the idea that, look, the main advice, I let them know when a new student, primarily I see my students at the college I teach at,
yeah.
And so those are the people that I deal with the most regularly, and the first thing that I let them know is that I admire them.
Mm-hmm.
Admire them for following their conviction in believing in their dream. And then I let them know that just because playing music is fun doesn't mean that it's not a lot of hard work. And so the thing that they need to think about is there's going to come a point in their life, sooner than later, at the age that they're at, where they're only going to have their own ass to fall back.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to have to work. So if you can do something you love, you're going to be able. You'll be ahead of the game compared to most of the population.
Right.
I think in a lot of ways, most of the population, everybody has to work, and not everybody has the luxury of having a job that they love. And I let them know that even though you have a job that you love, that doesn't make it easy. And I let them know straight up. I said, look, I couldn't be luckier with what I'm able to do, but I've worked very, very hard to make this stuff happen, and not every day is a picnic. And I don't really feel like it every day, but I think about the jobs that I had before I got to the point where I am now on those days, and I feel much better, and I know that there's people that wish they could do some of the things that I've been fortunate enough to do, and that makes me appreciate. So I let them know, you're going to work hard at something, but work hard at something that you love. And I think there's an old saying that says you'll never work a day in your life. I don't quite go that far, but it's like you'll be a happier person. It's cool to be if you're into playing a certain kind of style, that's cool. But it's good to be versatile. It's good to be versatile stylistically. It's good to be able to read. It's good to be able to program. It's good to be able to teach. It's good to be able to do a lot of things so that you don't necessarily have to put all your eggs in one basket. And that's something I probably learned more than from anybody. I learned the most from Gordy Knudsen, because Gordy is a very prolific educator, author. He's got his drum phones business. He's got his gig with Steve Miller, and he always encouraged us to diversify. Yeah, he was the guy that told me to put my ideas in a book. For Mastering the Tables of Time. I mean, I was working on my stuff for myself, and I was inspired, and he heard it, and he was impressed, and he asked me. He said, "So are you writing a book?" And I said, "No, I'm just working on this stuff, man. It's really moving my playing forward at fantastic rates of speed." And he said, "Are you writing a book?" Thinking about how that could be something that could be of value to other people,
Yeah.
And so then I had to think quite hard about how to make that so, how to format that and do that kind of a thing. And so, yeah, I mean, diversity is the key.